Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. Who says things are quiet when it's an international break? What breaking news this evening. In the last hour, Tottenham Hotspur have announced that Daniel Levy has today stepped down from his role as executive chairman after nearly 25 years. Tottenham Hotspur has been transformed over the last quarter of a century. It has played in European competitions in the last 18 of 20 seasons, becoming one of the most recognised football clubs, consistently investing in its academy, players and facilities, including a new world-class stadium and state-of-the-art training centre. The club has also competed regularly at the highest level, enjoying a number of fantastic on-field successes, including the recent Europa League Cup win. Now, the club statement also says, as part of its succession planning, the club has made a number of senior appointments in recent months. Vinay Venkatesham was hired as Chief Executive Officer, with Thomas Frank as the new men's head coach and Martin Ho as the women's head coach. Peter Charrington joined the board and will step into the newly created role of non-executive chairman. This is all part of the club's ambition to ensure that it is set up to deliver long-term sporting success. And chairman or ex-chairman Daniel Levy said, "I'm incredibly proud of the work that I have done together with the executive team and all of our employees. We have built this club into a global heavyweight competing at the highest level. More than that, we have built a community. I was lucky enough to work with some of the greatest people in this sport, from the team at Lillywhite House and Hotspur Way to all of the players and managers over the years. I wish to thank all of the fans that have supported me over the years. It hasn't always been an easy journey, but significant progress has been made. I will continue to support the club passionately." Now, we're live on X, Facebook and YouTube. Please do let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. We've got a lot to talk about. I've got three channel regulars with me. I've got Lee, the Dorset Spur. Lee, we'll get into the nitty gritty in a minute, but how are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm a bit happier now, but yeah, I'm all right.
We've also got Matt Jones back with us. Matt, it's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, evening, guys. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to be back. And, well, there's never a dull day with Tottenham Hotspur, is there? So,
never.
The timing's quite apt. Yeah, so, yeah, good to be back, Chris.
We've also got Si the Fox back with us. Si, how are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. I'm happy and intrigued at the same time, if you can do two things at once, which apparently most men can't, but I am both. So fascinated by what's gone on today.
Well, I'm trying to do 20 things at once, hence probably why I started a lot of those words. So apologies about that. Si, let's start the show with you. Of course, we had this show planned anyway. We were going to talk about a number of subjects, but now this news is going to be heavily dominated. Now, what do you make of this news, Daniel Levy stepping down? And I just wanted to point out to people as well that Daniel Levy has stepped down as chairman, but he isn't leaving the building, so to speak, because he does own 29.4% of the ENIC stake. And that is equal to 25% of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Of course, the major shareholder, ultimate control is with the Lewis family. What do you make of this news, Si?
Well, it's fascinating because it's not something that surprised me overall. It surprised me with the timing of it because, you know, Charrington joining the board and then the change with Vinay being CEO, it was clear that something was afoot. But it's just, yes, it's the timing of it that shocked me. So, you know, look, I for one, I'm not a Levy hater and I'm not a Levy lover. I think he did brilliant things off field on the commercial side, and you know, obviously the stadium will be his legacy. But I've questioned some of his footballing decision and footballing appointments, and it was interesting in the club statement that they said that they want to focus on, you know, the sporting development of the club. So I think, you know, there's obviously been a divergence in where Levy wanted to take the club to perhaps where the Lewises wanted to take it. So I think it's all manifested in this has happened. So for me, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised it's happened overall because of the reasons I said, but I am surprised at the timing.
Just a piece here from Sky Sports in the last couple of minutes. Sources close to the Lewis family have told Sky News about Daniel Levy's departure. They have stated that generations of the Lewis family support this special football club and they want what the fans want. More wins more often. This is why you have seen the recent changes, new leadership and a fresh approach. It's interesting though, Si, isn't it? The stats that I read out there, he owns 25% of Tottenham. So what's next?
Well, one of two things will happen, in my opinion. It will be that via ENIC will dilute his shareholding in, or the Lewises will dilute his shareholding in ENIC, and therefore he will get, some funds out of it. And I've listened to what other people have been saying about it, and you've got to remember that for the Lewises themselves, they haven't taken any funds out of Spurs at all. But Levy has had 60 million worth of salary over the years that he's been in charge. So perhaps it's a time for them as well with an investment, whether it be direct into Tottenham or direct into ENIC, for them to get some return on the funds that they've put in. So, I think that's how how I see it playing out. And I think that it's no coincidence that the Lewis's right-hand man, Peter Charrington, has come in as non-executive director and, non-executive chairman. And, with roles like that, the non-executive chairman don't get involved in the day-to-day running of stuff as Levy did. They're more there to, protect the interests of the shareholders. So, for me, I think it is part of a shake-up that they want to do. Where I think that you'll see the next movement is, and I'm not sure it will be Paratici, is there will be an executive director of football put in place. But whether it will be Paratici or not now, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it kind of makes sense in terms of what's happened from Charrington through to Vinay, and then now Daniel stepping back. But like I said, I think that they can dilute his influence by raising money or selling shares in ENIC, which means that he can get some funds out of it, and they can get some funds out of it. Or if they wanted to as well, they could just inject capital straight into the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club company on its own. Who have just done the deal with Macquarie Bank to get the finance for the last transfer window and other stuff. So, yeah, all fascinating. But, and the other thing as well is you've got to remember that Daniel Levy is still a director of a lot of their property companies. So it's more to do with the football inside that he will have less influence. Yeah. Maybe he will have less influence in choosing or turning down investors who want to take a stake in Tottenham Hotspurs. But that obviously Charrington will do that as non-exec chairman on behalf of the shareholders, and the major shareholders being the Lewis Family Trust.
Yeah. Interestingly, Si, I just wanted to ask you about this last line of the club statement. There are no changes to the ownership or shareholder structure of the club. Do you think that will change in the very near future?
That's a $1 million question. That the way I would view it is there's probably something going on in the background that none of us are party to at the moment. But I think what the reason for the statement going out like that is saying that there isn't an imminent, share sale or share of the sale of the shares in ENIC or ENIC share of Tottenham happening. In the short term. But if you look at, for me, it was just telling that Spurs borrowed money from Macquarie. The charge was registered on the football club yesterday, was it, or Tuesday? I can't remember. I think it might have been Tuesday, against the future revenues of the 25-26 football season. So that was obviously to inject capital in there. And if you think about people like Charrington and Vinay, their background is finance raising, capital, etc. And that's exactly what they've done for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Forget about who owns the stadium and everything else. They've used their future income and their money coming from the Premier League in the next year. The detail is in the document, the charge that was registered at Companies House. So there has been a capital injection into Spurs, but secured against the future earnings. So I think this is all part of a play by the Lewises and their proxy, which is Peter Charrington, to focus on the football side. So, I would imagine that the extent of the funds that have gone in there haven't been declared, but I would imagine there was significant funds made available for this window. And then we're left speculating again. The fact that we've messed around at the end of the transfer window again, instead of doing stuff earlier, perhaps that was a straw that broke the camel's back with respect to Daniel Levy and his negotiating style, etc., etc. One thing I would add quickly is that, we saw the Gary Neville overlap interview where Levy said he's still very much involved at the final stages of a transfer. That's why I think there will be an executive director of football coming in, because Vinay doesn't do that sort of stuff. Peter Charrington doesn't do that sort of stuff. So they will need somebody there who does. So, I think there will be another appointment in the not too distant future. So whether it's Paratici because of his history and, the fact that he's facing court cases for fraud from Juventus, is that the kind of bloke that if you got other equity investors coming in, you want there? Don't know. It's a question I can't answer.
He couldn't keep away. I asked him to do this podcast on Thursday evening, and he said, no, can't do it. Can't possibly do it on Thursday evening. And here he is, Mr. Craig Dearman's with us. Craig, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not here for a long period of time. Some of you will be happy about that. But I was supposed to be sort of helping out my son's football training, which I'm at the moment. But with this news, I just had to pop on. So yeah, huge news today, isn't it?
Huge, absolutely huge. Craig, before you have your say on it, let's go to Lee. Lee, what do you make of this news? And as Si said, I completely agree. The timing of this is very odd, isn't it? Why not do it before the start of the season? In international break when we're just 3 games in.
Yeah, that's a bit. I agree with Si. It's a real strange one, isn't it? I thought, maybe at the end of the season after winning the trophy and stuff would have been the right time and all this kind of business. And then, like, the season started and here we are, like, just in this odd break. And then you kind of step down. It almost feels like something else is coming. There's something else afoot that's going to happen, and that's why it needed to be done now. But it's just a really, really weird one. It's just a bit overwhelming. I'm not really sure what to think of it, if I'm being honest. I feel, quite, happy. It feels like a really good thing to have happened. But at the same time, it's like, oh, where do we go now? And what kind of uncertainty does it bring and stuff? So, yeah, a bit of a strange one. But maybe there's something coming. I don't know. And I see Chris has dropped off. I must have bored him.
Yeah. No, you've got me for the next 10 minutes. It does feel a bit like that, though, Lee, doesn't it? I mean, it's a bit like, I've kind of always been on the fence with it, to be honest. And people were critical, probably, of me not being on one side or the other. But I don't think you necessarily needed to be shoehorned into a box saying Levy out, Levy in. I just wanted Levy to do better. And I think it's fair to say, even though I don't think this transfer window's been the 10 out of 10, I'd still rate it at 7.5. It's been better. There have been balls ups on the way without question, but it's been better. And it's just funny for me, just giving my opinion on it, like seeing the Gary Neville overlap interview. You could have been, nobody would have criticised you if you say, oh, it seemed like Levy's going to be here for the next 10 years. And now this has happened. So personally, I think I've listened to everything Si said. Brilliant points, by the way. I think there's something bigger going on behind the scenes, and I think there has been something bigger going on behind the scenes for a couple of months at least. And I think there's going to be more changes now. Whether that's a change of ownership, it is a bit of we can all read into things. That last line, there's no change of the ownership or whatever the line was. It's really you could read it both ways, couldn't you? Matt, have you given your opinions on it as yet?
No, not yet. No.
Do you want to crack on, mate?
But I think you're right. You can read into it either way, can't you? And I think that statement is as of today. It'll change again tomorrow, and you think there's more going on behind the scenes. I mean, am I surprised? No. It's just like Simon and Lee have said. The timing's a bit strange, so it does make you wonder what else is going on. But yeah, it does feel the right time in terms of time for change. We need to you can't take away what he has done. From a commercial perspective, from the infrastructure perspective, he's done brilliantly. But unfortunately, when you kind of overall look at it, I don't think in terms of the ambition that hasn't carried through onto the pitch, has it? And I think that's the big issue, and that's what needs to change. We need a step change when it comes to on the field, and investment in the squad. We know player wages have been a real kind of issue. I think that's held us back over the years. So yeah, I think it's the right kind of decision. It's just what next, which none of us know, obviously. But you would feel you think there is big change coming for sure.
Would you put it, Matt? I mean, it's really difficult to describe, isn't it? I think me and you agree on a lot, don't we? We talk every day, more or less, on our chat group, and I think it's fair to say that I wouldn't say you was necessarily Levy out completely, but you're probably similar to me in some regards. But now, how would you react to, say, somebody that's actually wanted this for so long, and then it's finally happened? It's like Lee said, it's a bit weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is weird. It's like, I'm not surprised, because 25 years, he must be the longest serving chairman in the Premier League for sure. But yeah, not surprised. I think change is needed. But it is odd because you don't know what the future holds. But we need to do something. I think we're obviously going to pick up on the transfer window at some point. I mean, for me, I was kind of 6.5, pushing a 7 out of 10 potentially for the transfer window. What kind of concerns me is, there are similarities every year, aren't there, with what happens in the transfer window with us. And you kind of had the saga this year with Morgan Gibbs-White, we've had with Eze, all these kind of issues. And we do need to change our approach. And it's kind of frustrating, is it the kind of similar tactics? I mean, Si, you kind of touched on it earlier with negotiation tactics. It always feels the other big five go out, get their business done early, we sit back. And I just feel possibly kind of that approach and kind of leaving it late as possible, that's not working when we're missing out on targets. And I just feel that the change was needed. But I do think people should reflect and take note on what he's done off the pitch. You cannot take that away, and as we said, the stadium would be his legacy, Hotspur way, with the work that's been done, as well as within the community. But first and foremost, being that football club, we need to match that ambition onto the pitch, and that's where I just think we've lost our focus the last 5 or 6 years, and recruitment. How many managers have we had in this time,
Do you think that the family, Lewis's family, think maybe Daniel Levy has burnt too many bridges, and that's kind of holding us back now? Like with the Eze thing and the Morgan Gibbs-White thing, do you think they're kind of thinking, we've gone so far now, and he's kind of created this persona that he's so difficult to do business with, that actually it's holding us back because people don't want to do business with us, or
exactly that.
So maybe that's one of the reasons why they think now's time for him to kind of maybe just move aside.
Yeah, I agree. My point on that would be that if you go down for none of us really know what's said, but you've got Steve Parish who reportedly has said it was a nightmare trying to do the Eze deal. You've got Manchester City who won't deal with him. You've got Chelsea who won't deal with him, etc., etc. And someone summed it up for me beautifully. I can't remember who it was, but they said, Levy's transfer tactics are an analog service in a digital age, and that kind of
they are outdated. Yeah,
it summed it up for me beautifully. You just can't let it go to the wire and do your horse trading, because, it always fascinates me. Chelsea bought 300 million to players and sold 320 million pounds worth of players. I think the Lewises would look at that and go, why aren't we doing that? Because, that improves your team, your squad, however they do it. I mean, there's loads of things wrong with Chelsea and other clubs. But however, if you sell 300 million quid worth of talent and bring 300 million quid worth of talent in, you must be doing something right. And I just think that, the Lewises are looking at this and going, well, our bloke doesn't do this. Why not? I think there's an element of that.
Don't you think they would have had those discussions, though, Si? Don't you think, years ago, don't you think they would have said, or is it simply that because of the new stadium and everything to do with that? I know we're 5-6 years on from that, but, with COVID and everything else, but we've kind of gone past that. I do see what you're saying, but don't you think they would have had those meetings and discussions?
I'm sure they would have, but let's just say, right, so if I said to you, Craig, right, so just imagine a scenario where I'm your boss and you say, right, but I'm not only your boss, you and I have got shares in a business, okay? And then I say to you, well, what I want you to do is I want you to do it this way and I want you to do it this way. And I repeat that for a number of years and I give you a bit of grace after COVID to see if you can actually do it the way that I want to do it, and you don't, what would happen?
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, if you're in a job for 25 years, right, you find a winning formula that works for you, right? Let's be honest, I'm working for the company that I work for now. 11 years I've been in this company. I did 26 years at the previous company, right? So to a certain extent, you get stuck in the ways of how you do things and everything. And then when they want you to change and they want you to do something different, you get into that rut of pushing back. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And maybe there's an element of that at that level, that he's kind of done it his way for so long. He's had all the control and all the rest of it. Once you start diluting that control, then you start doing this, banging heads against each other. And that makes that quite a difficult relationship. And like I said previously, if you've burnt a lot of bridges around and people are avoiding having business with you, at some point someone has to make a decision, however painful that might be. So I think maybe he's just kind of stuck in his ways. This is how we do it, and that's how I want to do it. But football's changed so much, hasn't it? I mean, when he first started, there wasn't oil states and owning it, and there wasn't Russian billionaires and American sports investors, and it was just owners then. It's a totally different scenario now. You got to have different tactics. I think it's just outdated.
Lee, whose decision do you think this is, Daniel Levy's or the Lewis family?
I personally think it's the Lewis family. I think Daniel Levy would probably stay forever if he could. But I think ultimately it's probably been put to him, like I've just said, look, we've got to move on. Things are changing and stuff. And I think someone did say to me, and I'm not sure how true it is, that the Lewis family, as in the children, are more football fans and Tottenham fans and all the rest of it, and they want the success on the pitch. They want what the fans want. I've kind of heard a lot of people sort of chanting that about. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. And if that's the case, they're obviously as frustrated as the fans are, especially when you've got loads of money involved and all the rest of it. And if they can see someone holding you back from that perspective, like we do, I mean, we look at Levy and we say, he's holding us back. If we see it as fans, they're a lot closer than that than we are. So maybe they're seeing it. So for me, I don't think Daniel Levy would have just walked away. And that's why I think the timing is off. I think something's happened, and that's why the timing's off, because it just doesn't sit right. Like, to me, end of the season when we've won the trophy or whatever seems the most logical time. So it's just a weird timing to me.
Craig, what do you want to see happen next? Because I think it's fair to say that a lot of the fans' frustration over a large period of time, we have gone through a lot of managers. There have been a lot of poor decisions, but ultimately a lot of us fans are frustrated in the fact that when we have been so close, needed 1, 2, 3 players, sometimes we've got those 1, 2, 3 players in, but they've not been as good quality as the manager would have hoped for, or what the fans certainly would have hoped for. But what do you want to see next? What do you actually want to see happen in the next 12 months?
Well, this is, make no bones about it. I think we're all aware that this is a major seismic shift at Tottenham Hotspur, probably one of the biggest, possibly in my lifetime, I would say. And that's saying a lot. This, it's huge news. And like I say, I want to give Daniel Levy credit for everything he has done. And I want to say thank you for the good things that he did do. I think that's important. He does get a lot of flack, but Si would know the figures. I'm sure he might have well given them over. How much? I don't know how much. I can't remember how much we bought that he bought the club for, and I don't know how much it was worth at the time. But you've only got to look at it. It's billions more now, isn't it? So fair play to him for that. But what I would like to see happen is that we're actually more decisive in transfer windows and actually get our top targets and get it done quick, like every other club seemed to do. Like your Liverpool, I was so impressed with the way Liverpool done their business this transfer window. I think that is kind of the benchmark for me. Obviously, the only one which, as you say, wasn't really their problem, or not their problem, their fault, was Gay. And I still think Mark Gay will probably end up going there anyway, whether that be January or if he leaves as a free agent and joins them next summer. But that's the benchmark. That's what I want to see happen, and just doing business in a different way. And who knows? I still think there's going to be some money coming into this club. There's going to be a huge investment, whether that's a club sale or whether it's just investment. I think you'll possibly see naming rights. We've heard that rumour for months now, haven't we? So that will be very, very interesting. There's just a different. I don't know whether I'm making this up in my head, but they're just, well, what do you guys think? I just think this feels different now. This feels like there's a big change coming at our football club, and it's going to be.
Is it a positive one, Craig?
Well, this is it, and like I'm sure somebody said before, careful what you wish for. Very telling that Levy said they'll miss me when I'm gone, or you appreciate me when I'm gone. It does remind me, there was a pub I used to go to, and the landlord used to get a load of stick off a lot of people because he ran a very tight ship. And one of my mates used to say, "You'll miss him when he's gone." And I was like, "Oh no, we won't." I tell you what, you did. And I'm not saying that will happen with Levy, but it's like that. I was saying, careful what you wish for. I'm sure it will be better. I'm 100% sure it'll be better. But the next transfer window, I know we've just finished this one, but it's 4 months away now. So we'll see how we do. You can't do much till then, but I think you're going to get some more really big news over the next couple of months.
Do we think that when he did the interview with Neville that he knew he was going then, and that's why that statement was kind of given? And I think when you think about it, he's saying maybe people will appreciate me when I've gone rather than anything, because I think most of us took it like when he's dead, but he's kind of moved on, sort of thing. I just wonder whether he kind of had that in his head that that's what's happening anyway, and there was a plan for him to kind of move down. So yeah, it's interesting, I think.
Matt, when in the future, say in 20 years, if someone says to you, "What was Daniel Levy like as a chairman?" what would you say?
Great businessman. Yeah, as I said earlier, I think you were just off, Chris. We were saying it great from a commercial standpoint.
Yeah,
built the infrastructure up very well. We've had 2 trophies in his tenure, which isn't enough. And as I said earlier, repeating myself, it's that ambition. Unfortunately, it hasn't delivered on the pitch. I think he's wanted it to, but when you look at the amount of managers we've had, the recruitment, we all know that a lot of the issues there. I think that's unfortunately that's what's undone it now, and we are at a kind of crossroads because we've seen what's happening in transfer windows. Admittedly, it's been a bit better this summer. Still been sagas, as I've said. Kind of feel we shouldn't have been in that position. But you kind of think with the relationships, they're obviously strained with certain clubs now, so you feel like we need a new approach. You also wonder, and Craig, it's interesting you just touched on this. I also wonder from a performance perspective with the board looking at what's gone on the last few years, naming rights, that's potentially quite lucrative commercial standpoint, and been led to believe there have been deals that have been quite close over the last sort of 6 months to a year, and they haven't got over the line. You just wonder with the Lewises, there's the sense of frustration there perhaps as well. I mean, I think they've obviously been trying to grow the brand. I get that with the stadium, but there does come a point now we're back in the Champions League, for example. We're back at the top table. This was a big summer for us, still without naming rights, you know. But I think you can't take away what he's done, Chris. In 25 years, so that's one hell of a kind of gig, you know. It's a long time, but unfortunately, I just think in terms of the footballing side, it's the return of 2 trophies is not good enough for a club like us in that time. Really,
Matt, with what Lee said there about the Lewis family, you know, being Tottenham fans and perhaps they've had enough of the way that the football club has run. You know, Lee said that, you know, they might be frustrated. If you support the football club, would you want to sell it?
Good question. I don't think you would, because they obviously want to succeed long term, but it's going to come down to what's available in the market, and is it going to be minority investment, or is it a time to kind of cut loose and sell the entirety of the football club? If it's me personally, no, I wouldn't, because you'd have affinity with the club, but they may feel, you know, from a strategic point of view, it's the right time to do it. And if they feel that, I can't speak for everyone, but when you reflect on where we are now with the stadium, and we've had the Champions League final, we've won the Europa League, we've been getting more and more, you know, qualifying for the Champions League now, and with the stadium, I just worry sometimes where the way football's going, and you see what our rivals have been spending this summer, for example. You can't help but worry that kind of Tottenham Hotspur is outgrowing Enoch. You know, the club's outgrowing them, and do we need kind of a change of ownership with deeper pockets potentially? It all comes down to investment, and it's investment into the football club. You know, we've seen investment in land holdings and everything all around the club, but first and foremost, it's got to come back to the football club for me, because you know, you see, you know, Arsenal, Liverpool, the amount of money they're kind of spending now, and it's tough to keep up. No.
Richard said here, ask yourself this: how many other clubs have such a high-profile chairman who is always on the TV cameras? You know, always got the TV camera on him. Si, how would you describe Daniel Levy's time at Spurs? Because it's very interesting to you know, go back to 2000 when he walked through the door. It was a very, very different Tottenham to what it is now. I do agree with Matt, and I've said this on a couple of media interviews before. When someone feels like they have got something, a project, a football club, a business, whatever it is, to the furthest they can take it, perhaps it is time to sell. But I'll go back to the point again. He still owns 25% of the football club. So what would you guess that is going to be the next move? And also that question of, you know, the Lewis family support Spurs. Would they want to sell it? Can you see a foreign buyer coming in?
Well, I'll deal with one thing first. Craig said, what did they buy it for? It's 22 million.
Yeah.
If you value it at 3.5 billion, then that's a 15,809% return on your capital, which in any walk of life is absolutely incredible. So they've done all right out of it, and so has Daniel Levy and his family. So my view on what he's done for the football club. Look, when he took it over, it was in a mess. If you look at what he's done off field, generally, not everything, you know, like, you know, the naming rights, etc. But if you look what he's done, the infrastructure he's put in, as we've all said, on the commercial side and the business side of the operation, it's been fantastic. I think he's been very misguided and very misled, if we want to be brutal about it, and very foolish with the football decisions he's made. So that's how I feel about him. And then the question that you said, if someone says to you, what, you know, in 15 years' time, that's if I'm still here, of course. How would I describe him? I'd describe him as being, you know, a very commercially astute businessman who took a football club as far as he could do it. Now, that's where it then changes to me. I don't think, for me, that the Lewis family will sell a large stake in the club, but I can see them doing something that will release the capital that we need to punch at a higher level. And I do see, you know, either through the football club or through ENIC itself, I can see capital or shares being sold, diluted via new capital being raised. I definitely can see that happening. And therefore that will make the football club stronger. But, you got to remember as well, and I always remind myself of this. So Liverpool, we all say, had a stellar window, which they did. But if you look at their net spend, I can't remember the number, but it comes off the back of let's just look at numbers. So Liverpool got £51 million more than us from the prize pool by finishing first to us in 17th. They then had, I think it was at the end of the league stage, they'd earned 100 million euros out of the Champions League. So let's say by the end of it, they've made 100 million quid. So they've made 150 million pounds more on the face of it than Spurs did, just through league position and the riches of the Champions League. Yeah. Okay. And therefore, if you look, everybody knows that it works in multiples of 5 in terms of what you can do financially. So effectively, with FFP, and if that's their income and writing contracts off over a period, they could effectively spend 750 million. Well, they only net spent 200 million. That's the difference.
228. You're right. It's 228 million.
So that's the difference. But if you even look at that, so let's just say they made 150 million quid and they've spent 228, 78 million quid. It is peanuts in the money world that we're talking about. And, I think that's where, in my opinion, because of the lack of capital investment and perhaps the way that Levy didn't want to let go of control, that has affected Spurs, and it would still continue to affect Spurs. And what you got to remember as well is, I know most fans get their knickers in a twist about hotels, etc. But let's just say a hotel makes, 10 million quid a year. Well, that's worth 50 million quid for you in the transfer window. We're one of the stadiums for the European championships when they come here. That is all Levy's legacy of good deals. We'd be stupid to forget that. But what they don't have at the moment, because they of the way they're run, they don't have the capital to build that hotel that will contribute to the Euro 28 and all these kind of items. So that's why I think there will be some kind of shared dilution, is the way that I think it's going to go. And capital will come into club to do those projects and fund more players in the transfer market, and I've said this, Chris, on previous shows, and I know I'm boring when I bang on about stuff, but in my opinion, we were still too short Tottenham for yet another transfer window. And when you see that, and that was, borne out by the Champions League decisions that Thomas Frank had to make. But let's go back a step further from that. We have ballsed up our club trained players scenario. And if we had 3 more, we wouldn't be saying that, Matthias Tell had been left out, or Kota Takai had been left out, or whomever had been left out. And, who has overseen that? Ultimately, the bloke who appointed the directors of football and whoever else who oversaw that process. So that's what I'm saying. For me, brilliant businessman, set this football club up for, millennium to come, as it were, with the stadium, but not very good on the footballing side.
But he can still have a big say at the moment, Si, can't he? Because he's still there.
Well, no, that's the point. If he has stepped down as executive chairman, he can't. The reason that you take away executive powers is that once someone's non-executive, a non-executive director, you can have no influence over the decisions made by the board of directors. So at the moment, with him stepping down as chairman, executive chairman, he doesn't have the power to make the decisions. That now rests with Vinay, Matthew Collicott, and any of the other executive directors that we have on a board. Those are the ones that make the decisions now. And Peter Charrington is there to lead them, direct them, and make sure that they're not doing anything that the shareholders that they shouldn't be doing that affects the shareholders. So effectively now, if it's like this thing. So let's just say, Chris, you've got shares in Shell, okay? You can benefit from how well Shell does, but you don't have a say in how it does. You are not a board member or an executive member of Shell. Daniel Levy is now not a board member or an executive officer of Tottenham Hotspur. So he can't control anything, any decisions or anything else anymore as of 5:40 this afternoon.
It says he stepped down from his role as executive chairman.
Yeah. So that executive is the word that we need to focus on here. Executive means that you have decision-making power. That is what.
But it doesn't. But it doesn't say that he doesn't have any role.
No, but you can have. But with the role, he could still be the commercial director, for example, in terms of a non-executive commercial director, where he can go off and do property deals, etc. But he would take the property deals to the board, and then Vinay, Matthew Collicott, and the executive members of the board say yes or no. That's what an executive. That's the difference between an executive and a non-executive director, chairman, however you want to put it.
Craig, I know you've got to go. I'm going to ask you a last question. It says here, Peter Charrington says, we are now fully focused on stability and empowering our talented people across the club, led by Vinay and his executive team. Now, that was my point, Sire. The executive team could be still Daniel Levy. We don't actually know that.
I think we do.
Where has that been stated?
Well, if you're standing down as an executive chairman, okay, you have to have an executive role that would be announced. Well,
it doesn't say whether he's got one or not.
I'll take your point, but I don't think he has one now. And we'll see what comes out. But I don't think he has an executive role at Tottenham Hotspur as of 5:40 today.
Let me ask you that, Craig. Let me ask you that question then, because I don't know whether I'm looking too much into this club statement of what it says and what it doesn't say, because when you own a 25% stake in the football club, I can't see Daniel Levy walking out that door. And it doesn't say this in this statement either, that he's walking out the door and he's having nothing to do with the football club. I can't see it myself. But when Peter Charrington says there, stability, you would hope that there would be stability, certainly this season.
Oh, well, yeah. And, Daniel Levy's probably not walking out the door tomorrow and tidying his desk as we speak. There's going to be some form of handover, and it's probably a couple of months. As
an executive role?
Well, I don't think... I kind of agree with Si, to be honest. I think they would have said he's going into X role if he's going into another role. Yeah. But I just think he probably... the fact he owns shares in the club, he hasn't got to be there day to day now, has he? Perhaps he's thought after losing Donna Cowlin, obviously that was planned, been his right-hand lady for many years. Perhaps this has been planned for months. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So they're obviously going about things in a different way. And yeah, I think, like I said before, you're going to see a lot come out in the next couple of months, I'm sure. But very interesting times. But look, I've got to go. But pleasure coming on as always. So have a good show, everyone. Couldn't resist popping in. But I'll see you again soon.
Cheers, Craig.
Take care, Craig.
See you, Craig.
Lee, let's come to you on this subject. Someone who's been involved heavily with the football club for 25 years, particularly delivering the training centre and the stadium. I am surprised that someone would just walk away from it. I still feel like Daniel Levy will be heavily involved somewhere along the line.
I think you're probably right that he'll be heavily involved somewhere along the line, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be in an executive role, does it? Like I'm with Si. If normally you would see that if someone's stepping down from a certain chairman role, that they would announce the next role that they're taking up or whatever. Like in the same way they're now talking about Peter Charrington and all the rest of it. They're kind of announcing where he's going, what he's doing. So I don't think he's necessarily going to pick up a high profile role. He might pick up another role doing something else, because I don't think he's going to walk away from ENIC or the football club or whatever. But I agree. I think he's probably being asked to focus on other things because they want to take a different direction. You don't spend 25 years in a company that you're sort of part of an owner of or a shareholder of and just kind of walk away and go, I'm not interested anymore. There's got to be something in that. But like I say, I still think Si's got the right sort of view on it. I think he's stepped down from that for the decision-making process. He may well be there in some sort of advisory roles or, non-executive kind of roles in terms of, like you say, the hotel business and all that sort of stuff, the portfolio. I think maybe that's where he kind of goes.
Definitely.
Yeah, Jamie says, is Chris Cowlin for real? Does he not understand how board members work? I do absolutely understand how it all works, but I just think sometimes that these statements are very carefully worded. That was my point. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. The statement would have taken their time putting that together, and they keep it very succinct and factual. You would think 25 years, the guy's got an awful lot of organisational knowledge, hasn't he? So, as you say, Lee, he's not just going to walk away. That would be daft. But you think he's going to be in some sort of advisory role while there's a transition going on here. But in terms of the kind of key decisions now, you would assume that he won't be part of that necessarily, would be my view. But I think... it wouldn't surprise me if he's, in terms of another 6 months or so at least. He's 25 years. There's an awful lot of knowledge there that they're going to need to tap into.
Can I just ask you all what you think will happen? Where will we be in 12 months' time? What's your guess? What's your prediction? What will happen in terms of board members? Whether the club will be sold? Where the club will be in 12 months' time? What's your guess? And then we'll get back onto what we were actually meant to talk about today. Matt, let's start with you. Where do you think the club will be in 12 months' time? Because there has been so much change.
There has, and it's $1 million question, isn't it? I genuinely don't know. Put it simply, there's got to be, as we've all discussed, there's got to be some form of change of direction and investment into the club. What that looks like, is it going to be a change to the ownership model? Is it going to be minority investment, or is it a full sellout? Don't know. But yeah, there's going to be change. I think it's going to be like this. There's going to be a bit of flux now for certainly the next 6 to 12 months. And you've only got to see. It's just kind of, we've seen this, haven't we? Come kind of spring, summertime with Donna Cullen moving on, Vinay coming in. There's a lot of reshuffling at the senior management level, and obviously with Peter Charrington now. So there's change coming, and I think hopefully we'll be in a better place in 12 months' time. But in terms of what it means in terms of ownership, couldn't tell you. Really don't know, but there will be form of investment, you would think, coming. There's got to be something coming in the pipeline.
Cole says here, don't care what role Levy has, he won't be involved in the decision making. And King Hoddle says in the Championship. Matt, let me ask you: are you a fan of overseas investment? Do you want to see oil money coming into Tottenham?
Oh, there's a question, Chris. Hey? Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? If it's the right entity that comes in and they're going to take us forward from a footballing perspective, fine, don't have an issue. I'm not so sure whether it will be that. You just wonder with the NFL, it wouldn't surprise me longer term whether we have American ownership, but I could be wrong. You just think of that angle, that income stream is huge, with the NFL, and that will only want to grow. But I do feel we're at a point where the club's kind of outgrowing ENIC, and we do need someone to come in with much deeper pockets for us to to take us to that next level and be competitive. But no, in answer to your question, I will not be against any form of ownership if it's going to really back the team, you know, from an investment perspective and take us forward.
What about you, Si?
Wages,
Would you?
for example, I was going to say wages. That's been my frustration. How often we hear how much we've spent, you know, in transfer fees. You know, Dominic Solanke obviously last summer, and we've been paying the fees, but then actually look a bit deeper. We're not paying the wages. You know, so there's a lot of issues there that needs to be resolved. So yeah, I obviously would welcome some form of investment from the right kind of suitors.
So, would you be a fan of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's something there, and I think it will be either. I think American owners or somewhere from that part of the world is likely, although I don't rule out anywhere else. And just going back to the point you were trying to make, Chris, about Daniel Levy's role. If you're looking at what Peter Charrington said, if you look, he says, on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Daniel and his family for their commitment. Now, if you're saying on behalf of the board, that means that, this is just my view of the words, that he's no longer on the board because he's not an executive director. That's
very
just
carefully worded.
Yeah, that's my take of it. So, you know, we can all read it whichever way we take it. And then it goes on.
I just think in the past we have seen very, very carefully worded statements from the club. That's why I had to say it.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you know, when he's saying this is a new era of leadership for the club on and off the pitch, that says to me that he's going very much in a different direction without Daniel Levy's, you know, final say. That's just my take on it. But
okay.
You know,
let me just ask then. So when Peter Charrington says we're now focused on stability, how long will that stability last for? Because stability, you want to be thinking that's going to last for a good amount of time where we will be stable as a football club. Because how many times, Si, have all of us recorded these podcasts year by year by year saying we've got a new manager again, you know, we're going through the cycle again, blah, blah, blah. Stability. How long will that stability last for? Because I feel like this, again, is very carefully worded, a very carefully worded statement. How long does the stability last for?
Well, for me, stability for me means that, you know, let's take two different sides to this. So the ownership side for me, stability says to me that there will be, and the point about the shareholders was there will be no major changes, i.e. somebody coming in, buying all the shares up, taking the club in a different direction. So for me, that means that there will be stability in the ownership. That's how I would interpret it. Then on the other side, if you look at Peter Charrington has a long history in, you know, being the Lewis's right-hand man. So I think he will be non-executive chairman for a considerable time. And then Vinay in his role was, you know, in his role for a reasonable amount of time with Arsenal. So that's what I think. Going back to the footballing side, well, we kind of contradict ourselves, don't we? Because we, you know, as a fan base, I mean, not on the other side, because if we're talking about stability, then we get into these big debates about Levy in, Levy out, Ange in, Ange out, Thomas Frank in, Thomas Frank out. Well, would stability have been leaving Ange in situ because he'd won us a cup last year, or was the right decision to bring in Thomas Frank because the league form and the overall performance wasn't good enough last year? So it's a very subjective, point, isn't it? As what is stability? Now, look, I would hope that we have, and history will back me up on this, in a number of clubs, not just our own. But if you stay with a manager, you support them financially, you support them with the players they want, you support their playing style, and you give them the time to do it, a la Pochettino. And, you know, if you want to go Fergie at Manchester United, etc., Pep at Manchester City, that's stability, isn't it? So you can't keep changing your manager every 5 minutes. So I just think stability is subjective. But where I'm reading it is that there won't be major changes to the shareholder. And if the Lewises are, you know, their statements are around they have the same aspiration of us fans. Well, that means they want to provide the stability in the platform of ownership, but with a different direction in terms of finance and raising capital for the business that will give us the stability to be able to invest in the team every year, the stability to invest in the capital projects that feed the cash ecosystem. So it's all subjective, isn't it?
Lee, how different do you think it's going to be down the line? Because, as Matt said, and me and Matt agree on a lot of points, actually, that, over the years, there has been a big frustration with us not, paying big wages, not going after, the top players, perhaps the number one or even the number two choice. We've ended up with fourth, fifth, sixth choices sometimes, which has been really frustrating. Of course, we had that period of time where Pochettino went 518 days without spending a penny in multiple transfer windows. That was really frustrating. Of course, ended up being sacked a couple of months after losing that Champions League final. Wrong decision in my eyes. Jose Mourinho sacked 6 days before a final. Wrong decision in my eyes. Conte then gone. We could go on and on about, some of these decisions. Apart from the footballing side, when you look at Daniel Levy producing the stadium and him doing the getting the training ground up and running as well, and what everyone mentions it, don't they? Every single person mentions it. Fans, pundits, players, managers, whatever. Everyone mentions about our training ground and our stadium. How different do you think things will be in the future? Because it's not a guarantee that someone else comes in and we start getting our first targets, is it?
So it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Like in this debate that we've kind of been having, it's like we just don't know what the future holds. You asked a question a little bit earlier about what do you think that people are going to think about Daniel Levy in sort of 10 years time or 15 years time, and that's going to be subjective to what happens in the next 10 to 15 years. Because if it all goes down the pan, everyone's going to go, we should never have got rid of Daniel Levy. He kept us in stability. If you only got to look at the Sir Jim Radcliffe issue up at Man United, no one wants that scenario, right? So that's why that's kind of subjective. The issue around wages, I hear that. I do hear that all the time. But you know what kind of strikes me is we go out and we pay in Timo Werner £200,000 a week. We didn't get a good player for £200,000 a week. So sometimes paying the wages, I get it, but you got to make sure that you're still getting the right sort of player and the best player to pay that sort of wages to attract them. So you've got to be prepared to pay it. And I think we have shown that we have been prepared to pay in certain ways. Harry Kane wasn't underpaid, when he was at Tottenham, and none of them were really kind of struggling at a food bank, were they? So that's kind of interesting how that kind of pans out. But and again, the other thing is, you talk about the stadium, we talk about fantastic facilities, fantastic training facilities, and all the rest of it. But when players sign, it doesn't attract the players. The wages attract the players. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Everyone says, "Oh, what great facilities we had," but it didn't mean that Eze wanted to come to us. His love for Arsenal was bigger than great training facilities, or maybe the more money that they were offering was the draw. So it's one of them. It's just a real difficult scenario all over the place. You really just don't know. A lot of it's kind of guesswork. But in terms of ownership and that sort of change, again, I agree with Si. I think when they talk about stability, they're talking about we're not changing ownership. We are not selling the club and someone else is coming in imminently, right? But I know you asked the question earlier about if the Lewis family are supporters of the club, would they sell it? Maybe if they're supporters of the club and they realise that they can't take it to the next level because they can only go so far. But maybe they could get investment to support that, and I think that's the route that Si is kind of is talking about. Is that we loosen it up a bit to get that investment in, so they don't actually sell the club, but they get some other people's money to help them take it where it is. So they don't have to sell it, but they get to take it to that next level. So I think for me, it's about increasing the investment into the club, whether that be by selling off some shares or getting naming rights or whatever it might be. I think that's the direction we're likely to take. If that makes any sense, because I've waffled on. I know I waffle, but
no, you're right, Lee. I mean, allegedly that's what the rumours have been, isn't it, in terms of minority investment? So you do wonder if it is that, because that is not as, in terms of keeping stability, that's probably a more sensible route. And then there's another strand with the naming rights. But I don't know what, I just feel that's the naming rights must be a source of frustration for the board, that we're now kind of how many years on.
See, I work for a company that some time ago they reshaped the shares. So every share at one point was just one share. They then changed it so that every share then became 100 shares, so they could resell those shares. So if you had one share, all of a sudden you were given 100 shares, but then it freed up a load of shares to be able to be sold somewhere else. So maybe there's an opportunity around that sort of thing. I mean, I'm not a businessman. I don't really understand it. I'm not at the level that Si can talk about this sort of stuff, but I know that sort of stuff. I know that sort of stuff goes on where they kind of create that investment opportunity by changing how the share structure works and so on, and that brings that investment in. And gives them the opportunity then to be able to either borrow against it, finance against it, whatever it is, to bring that in. So I think, and maybe Daniel Levy was the kind of blocker for some of that.
Lee, do you want to see ENIC stay and, to take this club forward, or do you want to see the club sold? Because there are a lot of reports and a lot of rumours going around at the moment that the club is going to be sold imminently. And that's exactly why I'm stating about the point of stability. If it's an imminent sale, then it's not stability, is it?
See, I don't think there is an imminent sale. I don't think that's the case. And I think that's where the word about stability comes into it, because I don't think they want to sell the club. If you're asking me my own personal opinion, I would prefer, now that Daniel Levy is gone, I would prefer ENIC to stay with investment rather than us becoming a plaything for someone in some far off country or some, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or whatever it might be. But that's because of my own personal views about how the world works. I don't agree that nation states should own something like that, like a football club. I just don't think it's right. It's the way of the world, but I personally don't like that idea of it. If it happens, it happens, right? And because it's not going to change my love for my football club. It won't matter who owns it. But from my own personal point of view, I like ENIC as a company to be able to do it. And I think if they get the investment and all the rest of it, because the blocker for me was always Daniel Levy's way of doing things and this issue of creating a problem with other clubs and with other chairmen and all the rest of it. And he's kind of been the voice of, with the FA, kind of blocking other things that are happening. And he's made himself so unpopular that no one wants to deal with Tottenham. That's kind of how I see it. So,
Si, when you talk about executive roles, when someone owns 20%, when someone owns 25% of the company, and someone is in that executive role and walks into the boardroom to make those decisions, who is the person they're going to lean on, having 25 years experience? This is my point.
No, I hear what you're saying, but you've got to look at it from the perspective of, let's just take it. Let's forget about Tottenham for a minute and take another company, right? So any company, let's call, X, A, B, C, Co, doesn't matter what it is. The shareholders are different from the people that run the business. Okay, they are completely distinct things, and shareholders appoint boards that run the businesses that they own. And what happens is, as long as you have more than a 51% stake in the business that you're an owner of, you dictate who sits on that board, pretty much. Even at 25%, then or 27% of ENIC, 25% or 20% of Spurs, whichever way you want to call it, Daniel Levy is a minority shareholder. he doesn't have the rights to say, well, I don't agree with the other shareholders on the board you've appointed, because he can't do anything about it. It's just how it is. And that's what I think is the big change, is now that the Lewises, and whether it's, Charlie and I forget the daughter's name, I apologise. But
Vivian, isn't it? Is it Vivian?
Is it Vivian?
Yeah.
So Vivian Lewis and Charlie Lewis, they're now saying we don't want the board with Daniel Levy ahead of it. And because we are 71% owners of ENIC, they're thereby more than 50% of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Sorry, Mr. Levy, you're going to have to step down. And we want Vinay as our CEO, and we want Peter Charrington as our chairman, and we want XYZ as our director of football, and we want Matthew Collicott still to be the financial director or executive director on the board. They are just doing what most shareholders would do. Let's go back to the other one before he sold out. If Jeff Bezos wanted a board containing XYZ because he was the majority shareholder of Amazon, basically Jeff Bezos got what he wants. Elon Musk gets what he wants with, his companies. Zuckerberg does what he wants with Meta because they have the control.
So, Si, if you had the choice, you'd like ENIC to stay?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with ENIC, provided they provide the financial platform for the club to do the things that we as fans know that they can do or that they could do, And for me, if you talk, sorry to go on about the financial side of it, but if ENIC, like Lee pointed out, issue a load of other shares, and what that means is that a company buys those shares for 300 million, but 150 goes into the bank account of the football club to either pay off this Macquarie loan or do whatever else needs doing, then they would still own the vast majority, even having issued more shares out. That's just how share dilutions work. It's how capital is raised. But then what it comes down to is, and this is the bit of the unknown that we don't know, will Vinay as CEO do a better job than Daniel Levy as CEO? Will whoever's going to be the director of football do a better job in deals than Daniel Levy did, up until now? My gut feeling says that a proper director of football in the modern world would do a better job than Daniel Levy does. And what you're also doing is, where bridges have burned in the past, by having a new board there, a new structure, new deal negotiators, you're not going to be held. You breaking the bridges with the past and the way that you behave, because it's like most things. If we do a business deal that I do, and I go along and say, right, we've taken over this business, we're going to give you the same service. Lots of people go, well, I didn't use you before, but I'll use you now because I didn't like the previous owners. It's just the way of the world.
Do you know the most common question or the most common point here or comment that has been made during this stream is, who are we going to blame when things go wrong? Matt?
You, Chris, we're going to blame you.
True, though, isn't it? True. Where do we go?
Yeah.
Can I make a point on that? The point I would make on it is, you would blame the board. Whoever that board is made up of, they're ultimately custodians of the business, aren't they? Because again, forget the shareholding. It's the board that runs the company. So it is the board that would bear the brunt of, the brunt of the wrath if things go wrong.
Do you see Fabio Paratici coming back, Si? Is that do you think that would be a good move for the football club going forward? I know you spoke a little bit about this earlier.
Well, I've been sitting on the fence and changing hats tonight, which is normally unlike me. From a player recruitment perspective, I think he would be good. from an investment and an investor kind of relationship side, the fact that whether he's guilty or not has been, charged with fraud or, been in court cases regarding nefarious deals that were done by Juventus. If you were an investor and you think this guy is going to be in charge of the money as the director of football negotiating deals, would you be wholly comfortable with that? I'm not sure you would. So part of me thinks from a recruitment perspective, and I have a different view on Paratici to everybody else. Everybody goes, well, he got us Romero and he got us, Kulusevski and Bentancur, this and that. Yeah, but you also signed Galini, Brian Hill, Arnott Danjuma. So on, you can name them all, can't you? Emerson Royale. So is he better than Lange? Is he worse than Lange? I think all directors of football or recruitment people will have successes and they'll have failures. Again, it's just the way of the world. You can't pick every gold nugget from the stream, can you? You're going to pick up a few lumps of copper now and again. It's just the way that the job goes. So for me, will he come back? If there's going to be a dilution and another investor coming on, I think it would be less likely he gets the job. If it all stays as it is, I think then there's a chance, but I don't know.
So, last question on this subject, and then we'll move on. If it is a sale, the sale is not going to be straightforward, is it? It's going to be a very complicated sale because there's a number of companies involved.
So many entities, yeah.
Yeah, but it depends what's being sold. So
the stadium, will that be sold separately, do you think?
Well, it's in a separate company, isn't it? So
yes.
there is no need for the stadium to be part of a deal, nor all the other developments around there. The hotels are in a separate company. The training grounds owned by a separate company. So if a sale was being done, you could pick and choose. On the flip side of it, if I was a buyer and I'd say, right, I'm going to hand over X number of pounds for this, I want it all. I don't want to be beholden to you, so you can put my rent up from your stadium company to my football company. So
this is exactly why I said it's going to be complicated, because I can't see that happening.
Well, the only thing I would say is, again, if anybody's going to buy it, I think they buy it lock, stock and barrel. I don't think it would be sold piecemeal.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I've got a feeling we'll be recording a lot more of these podcasts throughout this season, and stability. I hope, but I can't see it myself, and I'm trying to be positive here. Totspur 63 says, it looks like Vivian Lewis may have got her way. Never a dull moment with Spurs. Lee, we came on here to record this evening to talk about the transfer window. I know I had all this preparation. It's all gone out the window. I'm going to ask you very, very quickly about the transfer window. What are your thoughts on the transfer window, the business that Tottenham got done? Did we do enough? Can we fight on all fronts? I was going to say, as Chairman Daniel Levy said, but, that's not the case anymore. Thomas Frank, ex-chairman, former chairman. Yeah. Role to be confirmed, I would say. We're beg to differ on that one side, but role to be confirmed.
You won't get him on the podcast, mate. He's got nothing to do now. He could come on the podcast, can't he?
Well, yeah, he still owns 25% of Spurs. I feel like there is a big announcement to come out. Lots more to come. Anyway, transfer window, Lee. Did we do enough? Can we fight on all fronts?
No, and probably not. But at the same time as that, I think we did a decent job in this transfer window. I didn't expect us to do as much as we did, if I'm being honest. And I think what overshadows our window is the issues with Gibbs White, the issue with Eze, the spending that's gone on from other clubs, your Liverpools, your Chelseas, your Arsenals. Man City, the amount of money those guys have been able to go out and just spend and so on has really overshadowed and shown the difference between the top clubs and the kind of rest of us sort of thing. But if you look at it without looking at anybody else's window, I think we did okay. I think we did fairly well. We knew we needed a right-sided player. We went out and got one, a decent one in Kudus. We didn't mess about. We paid the money that was required for it. We knew we needed a holding midfielder, so we went out and got someone in from that perspective, and he looks half decent from what I've seen of him so far. We needed a playmaker because of the issue with Maddison, and in the end, I feel like, and I've said this in my own video, I feel like we kind of fallen upwards with Javi Simmons. I think he's a really good prospect. I love the potential that I could see there. It's just whether it actually comes through because we've been there before. And of course, then a deadline day, you get a striker in as well. So it feels like we did a fair, decent bit of business. We also got Romero to sign on, and we got Jed Spence in the new contract. Again, feels really, really important to have done that. I think Bentancur is hopefully one that's coming up very soon as well. Van der Venen's another one I think who they're kind of talking to. So I feel like we've got the bones of what we need, but there is obviously still gaps. We haven't got a left back cover for Udogie. We haven't replaced Sonny yet. So are we holding on to the money to go back in for Savinho? I don't know. Maybe that's the option. So I think you've got to try to be positive. You've got to try to look at it without being blinkered by all the other noise going around, because we'll always want more. As fans, we'll always want more. I want this player. We bought 5, but we should have bought 7, or we bought 7, we should have bought 9, or whatever it might be. I think it's going to take time to build this squad, and and I think we're still just catching up from them 518 days where we didn't buy anybody. I think we've been right behind ever since, and we've been chasing our tails to try and do that. So they've gone for a lot of young players to future-proof the squad, and now it's time to get in some players that are ready, that are going to improve that squad now. And I think all of those players that we've bought this season will go into the team as regular starters. So for me, I feel like we've done okay.
Channel regular Gary Ward writes here, BBC Sport are reporting this was taken out of Levy's hands, so he's being forced to step down. Lack of sporting success as the reason. Matt, before I get your opinion on the transfer window, when do you think Daniel Levy knew that he would be stepping down? And what do you think Thomas Frank makes of the situation?
Yeah, I think obviously when you watch the interview with Gary Neville, I think he knew something was coming. So in answer to your question, I think he's probably known for a while. It's been on the cards, obviously, with Cowlin going and all the reshuffle at senior management level this summer. I think it's not a surprise to us. It's just the timing. So given some of his kind of remarks in that interview, Chris, I think he knew it. The writing was on the wall, to be honest with you. In terms of Thomas Frank, I mean, he's only just through the door, isn't he? So he may well have had an idea when he was being interviewed and coming in, the kind of future strategic direction of the club. There was going to be change coming. And he's a professional, isn't he? He will just get on with it. I don't think there'll be any issues with Thomas Frank. So no, that'd be my view on it.
Matt, what did you make of the transfer window? Because we always say that we're always 1 or 2 short. Are we 1 or 2 short again?
Absolutely, probably 3 to be really critical. It's hard because I hear where Lee's coming from, and it's hard. I try to be balanced with it, but I think the problem myself is I can't help but look at previous years as well. And you look at the pattern. We were better this summer, but there's still some of the same old kind of behaviours that came out. We obviously had, as we know, the issue with Morgan Gibbs-White, which we don't know truly what's gone on there. And whether we were both parties was to blame or not. We've obviously had what's happened with Eze. I think for me, it's taking a step back. We'd won the Europa League, we're in the Champions League, we had a Super Cup final. massive summer for me, for all of us, and this was the window for me that we had to get our business done decisively and quickly. Obviously, we got Kudus through the door. When you look at the incoming, I think he's a great addition. So I'm really pleased we got him in. Same with Paulinho, as we've said. Both players there, proven Premier League experience. He's that number 6 we'd all been crying out for. So that's great. And then obviously you kind of look at the other kind of incomings. They feel, Xavi Simons, again, echo what Lee says. I think we've fallen upwards with him. He's a great addition. But you look at the duration between Maddison getting injured and actually bringing that replacement in. It's just remarkable. It took that long to kind of get that kind of number 10 in through the door. And then you kind of look at some of the other signings in kind of Muwani, and so you feel there's always that kind of opportunistic kind of approach that we take sometimes, and that's kind of frustrating. But yeah, I think on the whole, the incomings, obviously for me, big kind of coup really was getting Romero to extend his contract, and great that Jed Spencer's done the same. So that's good in terms of building for the future. And Thomas Frank, you could argue he's probably one of our biggest signings. He's bringing him in as the manager. I think he's been a breath of fresh air. You can see we're far more organised, well drilled. You look at the game at Man City. You look at even the Super Cup final for AC Milan. That press and organisation is impressive. For someone that's only been here a short while. So I think all that said, that's great. But obviously the other side of the coin with the transfer window is sales, and we've not been great at doing that. We've still obviously, we're trying to sell Solomon, Basuma. We haven't found homes for them yet. Awful lot of loans. And I think I'm right saying in terms of sales, obviously we've had Son. I think we had the money back for Højbjerg, and Josh Keeley, I think, was the other one. So you kind of look at the sales. I think we could be doing better there, to be honest with you. And then taking the kind of final point of the whole transfer window, you can't help but look at what our rivals are doing. As I've said earlier, they are spending big money. So it's kind of all heading. We're heading in the right direction now. Obviously, we change, and hopefully, it's going to be investment, and we need it because it's going to get harder and harder as if we stay as we are to keep up with the bigger clubs. So I think for me, on the whole, it's kind of a 6 pushing 7 possibly. But yeah, I think we could have done more. I do worry kind of at defence. We didn't get that left winger in. You've got Udogie at left back, who I really like, but he is injury prone. He does pick up injuries. So you worry about the cover there. And you worry about the planning just generally, Chris. We've said this, how many times have we said this about the kind of the succession planning and thinking ahead? 22-man squad, Champions League. As we've said earlier, that kind of speaks volumes as well. There's going to be a lot of games. We all want to compete on all 4 fronts. We will pick up injuries. So I'm a little concerned with the depth, but I do have faith in Thomas Frank, in terms of what I really like his technical perspective in his formations. He will rotate. But yeah, I think we probably could have done with certainly a left winger and probably covering that back line. So we'll have to hold on for January.
So when do you think Thomas Frank found out about this Levy stepping down?
I wouldn't have thought he knew about it until, after he joined the club. That would be my gut reaction, not anything else. And to be fair, the other guys have said, particularly Matt, I don't think it would have made a difference to him. He's a professional. He's going to go and manage a team that's in the Champions League. So regardless of who the owners are and who the chairman is or whatever, it was a step up for him in terms of a challenge. I'm not going to, downplay what anybody does at any club because it's all relevant to the resources that you have. But, he wanted the challenge of the Champions League. He wanted to go to a club that historically is been, in the top 6 of the league for a number of years. So I don't think that if he knew earlier or, if he knew from the start, I don't think he would have known. I don't think it would have made any difference to him whatsoever. I think, he backs his own ability. And like I said, I think it's irrelevant who owns the club. What matters to him is, the staff that he brought with him, the team that he's got around him and the players he's got to work with. And then that's a step up no matter what happens. And also, I think, everybody's got their opinions on, Johan Lange and whatever, but they had a relationship before. That would mean something to him going to Spurs, like working with somebody that, he knows. And, a lot of fuss was made around, Thomas Frank said, that there's a lot of work to be done. They need to learn him. Yeah, they do, because, I don't think for a minute there were certain players that we could have got where I think Thomas Frank would have gone, no, I don't actually want him. That's not the profile of player that I want. And I think, they might have had a list at the start of the transfer window that didn't meet what he wanted and what he thought would work in the system he wanted to play. And then another point for me is, I still think again, this is another straw that breaks the camel's back. Everybody says, don't sign Kyle Walker-Peters or don't sign Dennis Sirkin or somebody like that. But if you did, you would have then had another European place open. If you wanted to go and get the fullback, which I think we should have four top quality fullbacks, and with the greatest respect to Ben Davies, I've loved what he's done for this club, but the thought of him going up against Bradley Barcola or Ousmane Dembele or whatever, well, that's rather frightening for me. So you sometimes have to play the game. And let's just say we pick Kyle Walker-Peters up. This is only him saying it because he was, out of contract. That immediately means that you can put one more player into your Champions League squad. And if you sign him on a 3-4 year contract, okay, this might sound brutal, but we could sell him next summer or we could sell him the summer after, and it would be cost neutral to us, but we've solved a problem in terms of our homegrown numbers. That sounds really callous, but that is modern football. And all of these things play into it. And then I've heard people say, yeah, but such and such team can only register 23 players, and Newcastle, I think it's 21, and somebody else is 22, somebody else 28. Do you know what? I couldn't give a damn. All I'm interested in is how many can Tottenham Hotspur register. And if that takes a Kyle Walker-Peters and a Sirkin to bump those numbers up, and we actually get the additional fullback that I think we're going to regret, then so be it for me.
So before we get your thoughts on the transfer window itself, I've got two very short clips from Johan Lange. Of course, he did a club interview yesterday reflecting on the transfer window.
Yeah, overall, I think we're looking back at a window where we as always have the ambition to be stronger after the window than before the window. And I think that without a doubt, we can say that we are that as a squad now. We have signed players who will come in and have an immediate great impact on the squad. We have signed some great talents for the future. And also, and very importantly, we also made a couple of very good contract extensions of key players as well. So overall, we're sitting here in a very good mood. All in all, when we looked at our squad, we said, okay, in this window here, it's very important that we sign a number of players that can come in with big experience from either the Premier League or top 5 leagues, and also European experience. And that, of course, with tension with those signing, they can come in. We have already seen it for a couple of players. Now, of course, with Xavi and Colomwani arriving as well, that in those players we have players who comes with qualities from the first day and also big experience that hopefully will benefit positive for the team's performance.
So firstly, I just wanted to talk to you about bringing in the experienced players in this transfer window, because Ange said it on so many occasions, particularly in his last couple of press conferences. This window is all about bringing in experienced players. Yeah, absolutely. And I think to be fair, I will always give credit where credit's due. So for me, Polina is a good addition. He's what we've needed in that role. You can't doubt any of the signings we've made that, they will go into our, if you want to call it first 11. I don't quite view it like that. But again, my only temperance to that would be with someone like Colomwani, when you do that without an option to purchase, or
at the least, well, I think you leave yourself open to him having a great year and going off somewhere else. Yes, he might have boosted you in that year, but surely if you are thinking and planning and strategizing the long term for the club, then the least you want is an option to purchase, don't you? For me, and the same, if you look at the Polinia deal, we did get the option to purchase in that one. So if it works out for us, the try before you buy scenario is good. So, I understand why we had to do some, loans, but I didn't understand the fact that we didn't get an option with Moani. So, yes, I agree with Johan Lange on that. We definitely brought more experience in. Yeah, I can get on board that. But I think you have to look at it as a bigger in the round for me, because if you are doing your planning and you have got your strategy, you wouldn't just be taking players on loan for a season, and I think that's symptomatic. Another reason why certain maybe the Lewises are getting the hump with it, because that to me doesn't look like a strategy. That just looks like to me as a last minute opportunity that you could take advantage of. So that's why I view it as mixed.
Well, BBC Sport have just stated here Daniel Levy's near 25-year reign as executive chairman of Tottenham is over. Spurs' official announcement said that he had stepped down, but BBC Sport understands the decision was taken out of Daniel Levy's hands. Well-placed sources said the ownership agreed for him to leave his position amid a belief that change would lead to greater sporting success. Lee, we're going to go to one more Johan Lange clip because here he talks about competing on all fronts.
Yeah, I have great people around me. We have a great team at the club in every department, and it's very important this year. It's a group effort. A transfer window is a group effort. So we have departments like obviously scouting department, as referenced earlier, with loans, insights, the whole administration department here at the football club is exceptional. The operations, the media, we all work together. The player care department as well plays a huge role in this window here. So it's 5-6 departments who really have to work together to create good process in the window. I think that with the additions we have done, I think we have the right balance between being, have qualities to compete of all these fronts here, together with the depth in the squad as well. So we are, sitting here, we are optimistic. We have seen already in the first 4 matches here, we have seen the potential of the team to go head to head with some of the best teams in European football, and those performances will be needed across all 4 remaining competition this season here.
Johan Lange says they're feeling optimistic from the football club, and the potential of going head to head against some of the best teams. Are you feeling optimistic about this season? Of course, we've all seen what Thomas Frank can do. We've seen him be very flexible in games in terms of tactics, etc. But squad depth, it's fair to say, with these games now coming thick and fast, weekend, midweek, it's going to be a big schedule, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a big ask, right? We always knew that, but I think with Thomas Frank, like when he came in after the sort of the match against PSG, and he came in with a Burnley, and he started off with 2 18-year-olds and a 20-year-old in midfield, and I was like, wow, that's a big call, right? And I was like, okay. But it worked out. He did right. He trusted his squads and stuff. And I think what we'll see is he will fit the tactics around his opposition. He will look at his players and he will utilise them as best he can. And I think he won't be in the same situation maybe as Ange was in, where he only had a certain amount of players. So because they've added to that depth, it gives him the opportunity to do that, to rotate those players around. And when you look at all the players that we've got, certainly in the front end of the pitch, they're all very adaptable. You know, they can all play on the left or the right. They can play through the centre. Some can play as a striker or as a midfielder. So I think he's got different options available to him, and it gives him something different to do. Like, all those players are slightly different. So if he's got them on the bench and it's not quite going right, because, you know, some players can be brilliant, but it's just not working for whatever reason in that game. And he's got an opportunity now to change it for someone who's slightly different, but at the same sort of level of quality. I'm thinking, you know, if Kudus is having a bit of a bad game, you can bring in Cowlin or whatever to kind of pick that up, or, you know, vice versa, whatever. It kind of gives you those options. So I am feeling optimistic that we are going to have a better season. I didn't feel that the squad last season should have been 17th. To be honest, I felt towards the end we'd given it all up anyway, and no one was interested. They just wanted to get the season over and hopefully get that trophy, which we did. So I don't think we're a 17th in the league type team anyway. I think we're probably, last season we were probably somewhere in the mid-table, really. And with the added players that we've got, that should give us somewhere in the sort of, you know, into the European spots maybe. Somewhere around there is probably a fair kind of thing. And with the draws, if the draws go your way, like we say, the Champions League draw looks fairly favourable. Carabao Cup is favourable, as long as the players turn up and do the business. So you've got the opportunity there to kind of build on it. It's just whether the players are really bought into it, whether they're really committed and so on, because obviously you can't afford too many performances like Bournemouth, can you?
Matt, last question of the podcast this evening. What's this squad good enough for? What can we achieve this season? And with Daniel Levy now stepping down as club chairman, do you feel like there will be a different attitude perhaps towards cup competitions like FA Cup, League Cup?
There could well be, in terms of team selection, and it may give a different kind of atmosphere within the club, Chris, you know. So yeah, you got to feel optimistic. I think, like I say, the fact that we've got Thomas Frank in now, I think it hopefully will prove to be a shrewd appointment with his staff as well. And then you kind of look at the recruitment. It does, like I say, it's been better this summer. And you look at the likes of Xavi, Kudus, Muani. I mean, to be fair, in terms of their age, they've all got a good amount of games under their belts. You know, most of them are nearly 200 games, you know, competitive games. So there's experience there. I think with Kudus, what I like about him, I think there's potential he could end up being dropped into a number 10 at times if we get issue. You know, if we do get injuries, there is a bit of flex. Muani can obviously play anywhere across the front three. So there's a bit more fluidity there. I just have concerns, like I say, around the depth on that left side. But there's January. I think it's kind of making sure we stay competitive on all fronts, get to January. Hopefully we have Kulusevski back, you know, then, and we add in the January window. In terms of where I think we should be aiming for, you know, as Lee rightly says, I think we've got a favourable Champions League draw. So you'd like to think we'll get to the knockout phases of that. And who knows, then if the draw opens up, you know, you can have a real go. The league is the bread and butter, and that hurt last season, being 17th. Obviously winning the trophy certainly went a long way for making up for that, but that's just not where we shouldn't be there. So I think with what we've currently got, it wouldn't be unreasonable to be in the European places. Top six, I think, you know, would be a vast improvement. And hopefully a domestic cup. You know, it'd be nice to see us add to that and build on that success from last season. You know, they know what's needed now to get over the line. So top six and an FA Cup, I think would be a really, really good season for us. The Champions League is a free hit, isn't it, for us as well? So got to be optimistic. It was just a shame, obviously, the weekend with Bournemouth. You kind of worry about that. And you just trying to be glass half full here. That might be a good thing for Thomas Frank to have seen that, because we've seen that happen time and time again before an international break. Not quite at it, not the right attitude. Where Bournemouth were outstanding, they were on it. Semenyo, he was just outstanding. So you just wonder actually that might longer term might be good for Thomas Frank to have seen that, and he can nip that in the bud going forward. So yeah, I think if we can get kind of top 6 and pick up another trophy, that would be great.
Chris, can I ask you a question, Chris?
Go on.
Well, in terms
it's not
of
about executive board members, is it?
No, it's not. Mate, no. In terms of a balanced squad, right? In terms of a balanced squad, we of a 25-man squad, give or take, we have currently fit 3 left-footed players. Is that a balanced squad for you? And also for me, what's your rating for the transfer window, and where do you sit with it?
Do you know what? The transfer window, I know I'll probably get a lot of stick for this, but I'd actually give it an 8 out of 10. I actually think that Spurs have done a pretty good job for Thomas Frank. Of course, Si, there is always work to do. Us fans always want the perfect window. We never get that perfect window. Under new ownership, under different people, it might be very different. Let's wait and see. But as I always think about a transfer window. If I was the manager, would I feel backed? Would I be happy? I think if I was Thomas Frank right now, I feel like I'd be happy. It's the fact that it's all the previous windows that all of us haven't been happy with. And of course, all that frustration just has that domino effect where we all then feel all of that frustration again and again and again. But I actually said the other day that I wish that Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, if they had windows like Postecoglou and like Thomas Frank has had, we might be sitting here very different, and we might have had a trophy or 2 more. So I feel like the transfer windows have actually got better, but there is always that frustration of, we haven't got a left winger, we haven't got this, we haven't got that. But I feel, Si, if I'd have asked any of you at the start of the transfer window, at the end of it, would you be happy with X, Y, and Z? Mohamed Kudus, João Palhinha, Javi Simmons, 3 starters. That is exactly what we needed. Matt spoke there about the 22 league defeats. Lee also spoke about them. 22 league defeats. We always knew at the end of last season, despite winning the Europa League, we needed a dramatic change of players to be walking straight in that team. Tolo Muani might be walking into that team as well, because we have 2 strikers that seem to be very injury prone now as well. So I suppose, Si, I think it's been a good window for Tottenham. Has it been the greatest window? No, but I think I feel like it has been a good window, and I do feel like Thomas Frank will feel like he's been backed. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, I agree. And someone in the chat put, perhaps we've got someone else coming in as a left winger. That's why we only took Muani for a season. But let's just say this isn't too far beyond the realm of possibility. Solanke and Richarlison are out fit, and we play Muani through the middle, and he scores 20 goals for us. But you haven't got the option to buy him. Yeah, that's where I go. But for me, I would say it was a 7 out of 10 window. It could be an 8 if we sell Yves Bissouma to one of the windows that are gone, because that guy needs to go. So I feel your points are fair, but it's just nice to hear your view, and you keep asking us as well.
The Kolo Muani one, from what I've read and from what I understand, that was like a last minute deal anyway, because he was going to be going to Juventus. Juventus changed the goalpost, or moved the goalpost about 20 times, which they couldn't agree a deal, and then Spurs just swooped in. And we know that Spurs have been interested in Kolo Muani previously in the January transfer window. But what I would say about players like Javi Simmons, and Frank said this the other day, he can play left wing and he can play number 10. Kolo Muani, he can play across the whole front third. And I love versatile players. Managers seem to love versatile players. Ange love versatile players, and now Thomas Frank does as well. So what I would say is, to those people that are really frustrated about us not getting in a left winger, we do have a number of players that can play there. Is it ideal? No. But you do have a real quality player in Javi Simmons, and when James Maddison and Kulusevski come back, it might look very different again, and Javi Simmons might even go out on the left-hand side. So it could be a really good look for Tottenham going forward. But as per usual, it's not now, it's down the line, and it is in the future. Whereas we all want it all now. And, when Matt spoke about that trophy parade, that was incredible. And I want to feel like that again. And I'd love, our team, our captain Romero, to be going down that high road again, because, they were absolute scenes. The way I felt that day was it was amazing. Incredible. It was amazing. Brilliant. Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I know it's been a bit of a mad one. So thanks so much for your input, and we look forward to having you on again very soon.
No problem.
Matt, where can people find you on social media? And you still banging out those T-shirts?
Banging out the T-shirts, printing the shirts. Yeah. So, people want to follow me. They've got my Insta handle there, Chris. So you can follow there, look at my shirt collection, whatever. And, Spurs fans always give them a follow back. So, find me there. And, obviously been a busy summer. Now looking forward to, obviously, with the season getting back to normal and home and away, and hopefully get some European away trips in, Chris, as well.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Matt. And Lee, thank you so much for joining me and us talking about Daniel Levy, Johan Lange and Thomas Frank, etc. Where can people find you? What are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, so you'll find me all over social media, as always. Just Lee the Dorset Spur, you'll find me. Just doing the same old things. Currently in London for work, doing videos for you as well, Chris. I've pinged them over to you, ready for tomorrow. But I did it too soon. I didn't know that Levy was going to go. How disappointing is that?
You got to do them all again. I filed them already. I thought, I'm not using these. You have to do some more.
Some of us have got work to do. So anyway, you'll find me all over social media if you want to find me, or you'll see me on Chris's channel generally on a Friday doing a weekly update. So you'll see me there. But great to be back. You'll see Lee here every Friday having a moan about Tottenham. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and we're getting Si more involved now as well, and he loves to moan about Tottenham. But Si and I are actually playing football on Saturday. So Si, you looking forward to it?
Yeah, can't wait, mate. It's going to be epic. Although my lungs won't thank me at the end of it, so I'm sure it'll be fun. And can I just say, on behalf of all the Spurs fans that follow the show, I'm really glad you are our executive chairman, mate. That's
bloody hell. Well, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens on that front. But I'm just very aware of statements. And I read statements about 5 or 6 times. And I think, what does that mean? What does that mean? And then dissect it. And I'm thinking, well, it hasn't actually said that. And it hasn't said that. So I just like them to be a little bit more to the point. Yeah.
Can I say rather than Saturday, as bearing in mind that I will be doing some of the management of the team, I'm going to be working you hard.
It's fine. That's fine. I'm used to hard work, mate. I'm used to winning as well, so we want to win. We want to win, Si. So we've appointed Si as one of the coaches, and we've appointed Craig as the captain. So if anything goes wrong, we've only got them two to blame.
No, we've got 2 Cowlins in the team as well. So I want to see how that dynamic works.
That's it. Right. Lee, Matt, Si, thank you so much for joining us to talk about everything Tottenham. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks for listening as well. It has been a mad day. We'll be putting out a lot more content over the next 24 hours. Do look out for that. And stay safe and well. Have a good weekend. We'll see you soon. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.